Update, brought to you by Simcox Advocates, advising businesses and families since 1949. Visit simcox.com or call 690 300. Manx Radio's Update with Andy Wint.
Thanks to my good evening. It's 5:30. This is Update for Tuesday, 6th of February 2024 from Manx Radio. 30 minutes looking at the latest news on the Isle of Man. Background to that news, we got sport, business, Sea-Watch, travel updates and the newsmakers in person. This evening, the latest on the Southern Wind Turbine project. New housing bylaws could be on the way. Southern Pool HR support won't be departmental. Increased sentences proposed for sexual crimes and the reasons behind the Patrick Commissioner's appointment.
Man Benham for all your business and legal needs.
But first of all, at 29 minutes ahead of 6 o'clock, the Update News headlines. Faster my Siobhan Fletcher.
Faster my. Ronaldsway Met Office has issued a yellow weather warning for icy patches across the island this evening. It will come into force at 9 p.m. and remain in place until 10 a.m. tomorrow. New legislation which will increase the maximum prison sentences for people convicted of sexual crimes will provide more protection for people on the Isle of Man. The Home Affairs and Justice Minister will take the Sexual Offences and Obscene Publications Act to Tynwald next month. It includes legislation for new offences including voyeurism, upskirting, revenge porn and possession of extreme pornography. A meeting to discuss plans to update the family home of a Peel teenager who was injured in a car crash in 2022 is getting underway in the next half an hour. A drop-in evening will be held to discuss renovation plans for Ballalocky at Peel Football Club from 6 p.m. Further afield, Prince Harry's returned to the UK to see the King following his cancer diagnosis. The Duke of Sussex cleared his diary to see his father, who's already receiving treatment for the illness. South Wales police say they're investigating two sudden deaths. The bodies of a 40-year-old man and a woman who was 34 was found at an address in Port Talbot yesterday morning. And the owner of Facebook and Instagram has announced plans to label AI-generated images posted by users. Meta is bringing in a watermark for pictures that resemble real photos to ensure transparency. They're your headlines. News at 6.
Secure tomorrow today with Man Benham's private client team. Manx Radio Weather with Manx Glass and Glazing.
Goromaya, thank you, Siobhan, from the Ronaldsway Met Office. That strong wind warning in operation for the North Irish Sea. State of sea is slight or moderate. Dry and clear, a light variable breeze. Overnight minimum 0. That yellow weather warning through till 10 tomorrow morning for frost and icy patches. At Fort Crane, Wednesday dry and sunny, daylight maximum 7 degrees, down to 2 through the night into Jardine. Thursday, rain and sleet on a strong easterly, which will fall as snow on the hills. Top temperature 5 degrees. Tides on the way back in, high waters 9 minutes before 9, low tide 14 minutes after 3 a.m, sunrise 5 to 8 tomorrow morning. And high tide 5 minutes past 9. The matrix signs at the moment are showing a warning for the Mayhill traffic lights. Queues at the Mayhill traffic lights.
Manx Glass and Glazing are proud to be an approved contractor with Construction Isle of Man. Call the team on 674 573 or visit the showroom on the Snugborough Trading Estate.
The proposed Manx Utilities wind farm at Eriestown and Scard isn't the only energy source being analysed by Manx Utilities. Backup options are also being secured by the team as part of a wider scoping work. Lizzie Riley, Transition Programme Manager at Manx Utilities.
We've progressed with our onshore wind project and based on the information we have to date, believe it is deliverable by 2026. We've done a lot of feasibility work on the delivery of a second interconnector which supports our 2030 target. So we would try and avoid the same path because obviously using the exact same route that we have today presents a potential security risk. So there is always the danger that a trawler may end up tangling up with the interconnector with an anchor. So strategically placing them slightly further apart avoids and limits that risk to a certain extent. We're also doing some background work and feasibility studies at the moment with regards to another project which is to do with having carbon neutral dispatchable generation on the Isle of Man. So dispatchable available on demand. You can start it instantly no matter what the weather's doing. We recognise that resources like wind and solar are not 100% guaranteed on any day, and we have a responsibility on the Isle of Man to deliver security of supply, so we have to be able to meet our customers' demand for electricity regardless of what the weather is doing. And to do that and to be realistic about the transition, you have to have an energy source which you can guarantee is available at any time, irrespective of what the weather is doing, and that's what our customers on the Isle of Man come to expect.
New legislation which will increase the maximum prison sentence for people convicted of sexual crimes will provide more protection for people on the Isle of Man. The Home Affairs and Justice Minister will take the Sexual Offences and Obscene Publications Act to Tynwald next month. The Minister, Jane Paul Wilson, MHK.
The Act is really important because we have some updated offences in there, particularly covering child abuse, and we also have uplifts in prison sentences, so the maximum prison sentence available for certain offences. We also have new offences in the Act relating to voyeurism, upskirting and revenge porn, also to possession of extreme pornography, and then there is more protection for children and vulnerable adults. So the legislation is really important because, as I say, it introduces new offences, it increases the maximum prison sentence in a number of different offences, and so by implementing this new legislation we enhance protection and the sort of action we can take in relation to a number of risks around sexual harm and sexual violence. In an ideal world, that we will try and do more to protect people in the first place, and I think one of the things and the importance of Sexual Violence Awareness Week is raising awareness around this and doing what we can to make it clear that these sorts of behaviours are absolutely not acceptable. And so raising awareness like this week does, I think, is important in that. I think the other thing that is really important that we are working towards is our new sexual assault referral centre, which will be a clinical-led facility once it is fully in place.
The Isle of Man in 30 minutes. Update on Manx Radio with Andy Wint.
Fast am I, 23 minutes before 6. Safe systems of work weren't in place at the workshop where a St John's man suffered fatal injuries after being crushed by a falling piece of marble. The inquest into the death of Nathan Harvey has reconvened at Douglas Courthouse today. Tessa Hawley was there for Manx Radio News.
The 30-year-old died on the 21st of June 2022 at Nobles Hospital after an incident at the Poolvash Black Limestone headquarters in Ballasalla. Mr Harvey, who'd worked for the company since October the previous year, was attempting to move an unusually large piece of marble with a colleague. However, the half-ton slab slipped and landed on him, trapping him underneath. He was rushed to hospital but suffered a cardiac arrest. A subsequent post-mortem found he'd suffered injuries that meant he had no realistic prospect of survival. At Douglas Courthouse today, Coroner of Inquest James Brooks told the court nobody and no organisation is on trial. The court heard from Mr Harvey's colleague, who said with hindsight the duo should have waited for help from one of the company owners before attempting to lift the slab. In May last year, Poolvash Black Limestone was fined £60,000 after admitting 2 health and safety offences. Today, the owner and director of the company, Rosemary Glassy, told the court she was responsible for health and safety despite having no formal health and safety qualifications. When quizzed about the training she'd provided to employees, including Mr Harvey, she said this was taught in words, in pictures, by watching videos from manufacturers, but mainly by experience on the job. An independent review of the company by the Isle of Man Health and Safety Inspectorate following Mr Harvey's death found a safe system of work was not in place at the time the incident happened. The inquest will reconvene tomorrow when Coroner Brooks is expected to deliver his verdict. You can find more information at manxradio.com.
The Cabinet Office Minister says the appointment of temporary members to Patrick Commissioners was requested by the board. Kate Law-Brennan MHK told the House of Keys today the Elections Department worked with the captain of the parish to select people to take up the post.
Consideration was given by the Crown and Elections Division of the Cabinet Office, and it was deemed appropriate to use the function of appointment of temporary members to the local authority granted under Section 36 of the Elections, Keys and Local Authorities Act 2020. Officials from the Crown and Elections Unit of the Cabinet Office and the local government unit of the Department of Infrastructure liaised with the Clerk of Parish Commissioners, who confirmed the appointment of temporary members was requested by the remaining commissioners and identified that this additional support would be required by the 8th of January, the date of the commissioners' meeting at which the rate decision would need to be approved. In accordance with the legislation, the Cabinet Office initially consulted with Parish Patrick Commissioners who were unable to recommend 3 potential appointees. Therefore, in order to identify suitable appointees at short notice for this temporary arrangement, the Cabinet Office took soundings, including from the captain of the parish, to help identify suitable people of standing who may potentially be willing to fill the positions on a temporary basis before and while formal elections arrangements process could be completed. And this could happen in light of the fact that the budget and rates determination was due to be considered at the January meeting. Approaches were then made to gauge acceptance of a temporary appointment, and the order appointing those who accepted was made on the 21st of December 2023.
Sea-Watch with the Isle of Man Steam Packet Company.
Motor vessel Manxman left Heysham at 2:04. Sure, you'll be into the bay any time now and onto the link span in the next 10 minutes. Departing this evening at 7:45, arriving in Heysham at 11:30. The overnight departure from Lancashire at 2:15, back to Douglas at 6 tomorrow morning. And Wednesday morning's departure 8:45, Manxman heads to Heysham.
Follow the Steam Packet on Twitter for the latest sailing information.
Castletown Commissioners could be introducing new housing bylaws to its social housing. The issue was discussed at the local authority meeting last night. Our local democracy reporter Emma Draper was there.
Castletown Commissioners had their first meeting since the announcement that the southern swimming pool would be saved. The local authority said it will be supporting the increased rate to 6.1 pence to support the facility and ensure it stays open. Vice Chair Beth Cannon had concerns that if pupils were travelling elsewhere for swimming lessons, it would have a detrimental impact on the children's education. Mrs. Cannon says she was proud of how the community in the South pulled together to save the pool. A planning application on the agenda brought a number of residents to the Commissioners' meeting. The owners of Reef House on College Green have applied for planning permission for a triple garage on the site, which the neighbours who attended were not in favour of, with one saying the proposal will obstruct the public's view of the sea, and another said if the application went ahead it would spoil a beautiful view of Castletown. Commissioner Jerry Ludford Brooks said they will be staying neutral on the application, and Clerk Hugo Mackenzie said residents should submit their comments to planning. Also on the agenda was a notice of motion from Commissioner Colin Leather about reinstating housing bylaws which expired in 2012. Mr. Leather said the current powers the commissioners have are either do nothing or take back the house from the tenant, which he called draconian. This applies to minor problems as well as bigger issues like breaches of tenancy agreements. If the bylaws are created, the local authority would have the power to take someone to court or issue a fine. He says it could also include an option to give the tenant a set number of weeks' notice to rectify the problem. It was agreed unanimously to investigate further and then petition the idea to Tynwald.
Manx Radio Business Briefing.
At 17 minutes before 6, in corporate news, US pharmaceutical company Eli Lilly reported stronger than expected results on the strong launch of its new weight loss drug, Zepbound. The quarterly results are the first to include sales of Zepbound, which some analysts say could post more than $1 billion in sales in its first year and on the market and eventually become the biggest drug of all time. And for a full daily market report, go to ramseycrookall.com. BP's reported its second highest annual profit in a decade, despite being half the level it announced the previous year. Profits at the energy giant were $13.8 billion, some 11 billion sterling in 2023, down from the record $27.7 billion in 2022, when oil prices soared in the aftermath of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The price of oil fell back last year, cutting profits to all energy firms, but BP says it's stepping up plans to return cash to shareholders. The results are the first released by BP since the company announced Murray Auchincloss as its new chief exec. Previous boss Bernard Looney resigned last September after admitting he'd not been fully transparent about past personal relationships at the firm. BP board said Mr. Looney had committed serious misconduct, resulting in him forfeiting up to £32.4 million of pay and benefits. The fall in BP's annual profits echoes the results from rival Shell, who last week said profits fell to $28.2 billion. last year, down from 39.9 billion in 2022.
The Stock Market Report, brought to you by Ramsey Crookall.
UK and European markets higher today as investor confidence remains robust. In the US, Wall Street's indices inched higher. Gold regained some ground on a slight pullback in the US dollar and Treasury yields, and oil was little moved today. The numbers from Ramsey Crookall. At the close in London, the FTSE 100 up 0.9%, 7,681. The DAX in Frankfurt up 0.8%, 17,042. A short time ago in New York City, the trading day rolls on. The Dow Jones Industrial up 0.2%, 38,461. The Nasdaq Tech Stocks Index down almost 0.1% at 15,584. The S&P 500 in Chicago up 0.07%, 4,946. In the exchange markets, the British pound sterling trading at $1 25.9 cents, €1 17.1 cents, and 23 South African rand 76.8 cents. In commodities, gold's up 0.6%, $2,036 per troy ounce, and a barrel of Brent crude up just over 1.1%, $78.71.
You've got an investment plan?
Yeah, Mike set it up.
But don't you need loads of money to do that?
Not this one. It's called Shearwater from Ramsey Crookall, and you pay in monthly as little as £100. So it's like saving regularly, really helping us invest in the future for a house, or the kids' education.
£100 a month? I could easily do that.
You should. The sooner you start, the better.
Invest in your future with as little as £100 a month. Shearwater from Ramsey Crookall, the island's investment specialist for 75 years. Call 717171 or visit ramseycrookall.com. Licensed and regulated by the Isle of Man Financial Services Authority.
The illness of the King, Lord of Man, has drawn even greater attention, if it were needed, to the benefits of early diagnosis of cancer. But many still shy away from getting checked sooner rather than later. From Man in Cancer's David Gaughan.
With any disease, any illness, the longer you leave it, it can get worse. And the sooner you get it treated, the sooner you start to recover. So regardless of your age, if you're not feeling up to scratch, and if you're finding some unusual changes, shall we say, in your body, then you really should go and see your GP and get it checked out.
And over a certain age in particular?
Cancer is not prevalent in older people, so obviously as you get older, these things are better checked out early.
As far as doctors are concerned, if you go in and they haven't seen you for some time, will they sort of run the rule over and think, well, we'll have a look at a couple of other things as well, with your permission, of course?
Well, they should do. If you present yourself, then what they should be doing is looking at family history, because family history can sometimes be a pointer to cancer. Symptoms, signs, how you're feeling, any changes in your mood, any changes in the way you react to things. So it should be an holistic approach, really, to have a look at the whole body and thereby build up a picture of what might be going on.
There's an enormous percentage of people over a certain age are prone to cancer. Is this growing, or has this always been with us? It just hasn't been picked up.
I think it's always been with us, and I know that 25% of cancers are over 75. I think with a lot of these things now, cancers are being diagnosed, whereas in the past they weren't really diagnosed. Somebody got ill and died. Nobody really, if you like, analysed down to find out what the actual cause was.
Update brought to you by Simcox Advocates, advising businesses and families since 1949. Visit simcox.com or call 690 300. Manx Radio Sport.
Fast am I, Rob Pritchard.
Fast am I. Good evening. Starting with cycling, and Mark Cavendish is back in competitive action for Astana, Kazakhstan today. The Manx Missile's first event of 2024 is seeing him contest the first stage of the Tour Columbia, an event which is making a comeback after a 4-year absence. In May last year, Cav initially announced plans to retire at the end of the 2023 season, before postponing those plans 5 months later in October and agreeing to race for a further campaign. Today's opening stage of the Tour Columbia got underway at around 3 p.m. UK time, with the frontrunners currently expected to finish shortly after 6:30. Elsewhere in motorsport, insurance has been secured for all road racing events on the Isle of Man in 2024. That's according to Minister for Enterprise Tim Johnston in a written Tynwald answer following a question on the matter from Douglas North MHK John Wannenberg. Mr Johnston says he's been advised the Auto Cycle Union has attained cover on the same basis as previous years for this year's Isle of Man TT races and Manx Grand Prix, as well as Southern 100 meetings on the Balaun course. When asked for how many years such cover is in place for, the Minister adds insurance is secured annually, and the policy for 2025 events is due to be put in place before the end of November this year. In badminton, the Isle of Man badminton squad has enjoyed more medal success whilst competing at the Essex Tier 4 competition at the weekend. Stephen Quayle took silver in the men's singles, whilst Annalise Meller and Kitty Thomas secured silver in the women's doubles. Elsewhere, fellow Ireland competitor Jess Lee also put in a positive display during the English National Badminton Championships in Nottingham on Saturday and Sunday. She reached the last 8 of the women's doubles event alongside teammate Casey Scott. And finally, it was a tough weekend for 2 of the island's junior national hockey sides in the England Hockey Championships on Sunday. The Isle of Man under-18 boys suffered a 7-1 loss against Timperley, whilst the under-18 girls were on the end of a narrow 2-1 defeat against Lichfield.
Manx Radio Travel, driven by Quayside Tyres and Service Centre.
3 inbound up Ronaldsway tonight. The 7:30 EasyJet from London Gatwick on time. 10 to 8 Loganair from London City, and the 5 to 8 Loganair from Liverpool all showing fine tonight. Outbound 6 o'clock Loganair to Liverpool, the patient transfer plane on time, and then it's the 8 EasyJet back to Gatwick showing on time. On the roads, Kiandrockard Road in Andros is closed in phases for water main work. You got closures on the Ballalai Road south of Kirkmichael for water main work. Temporary lights at the bottom of the Ballamoda at the Grenby Road junction for patching work, and lights in Peel on Ramsey Road near Battery Lane for cable work. In Douglas, Hillside Avenue is closed to Circular Road for adjacent office window replacement. Part of Switzerland Road's closed for construction work till November. The Millennium Bridge closes at 8 o'clock tonight for repairs till 4 a.m. for maintenance, diversions in place. Temporary lights on Lock Prom by Tower House for cleaning the building fascia. Temporary lights at the bottom end of Summerhill for gas repairs, and in Baldrine, temporary lights on the main road north of the Liverpool Arms for work on the tram crossing. In Glenvine, temporary lights on the main road between the Glendarroch Road and Ballagary, traffic lights for wall building work. Temporary lights at the junction of Mayhill and Queenspear Road for pavement resurfacing, thus the queue at the Mayhill traffic lights. Restrictions on Vernon Road and Seamount Road in Ramsey. Phase closures on the Ballakill Ferrick Road for water main work, and temporary lights on Kiggerwood Road in Onken between Groudle and the A2 for trial pit work.
Quayside Tyres and Service Centre with 1 year's free engine warranty from Castrol. Get more with
Quayside. The Education Minister's admitted that support for HR supplied to the Southern Pool employees by her department is now the responsibility of local authorities. Julie Edge, MHK, said those affected by the potential closure of the facility will be offered the support. But in Keys today, she said it's not her department's responsibility.
My department requested HR support. It's a centralised service of government. We did request that, but subsequently it wasn't offered to the Southern Pool Board. However, they are a local authority, and I would expect them to have HR support under the Local Government Act. I just need to correct the Honourable Member with regards to HR support. That will not be coming from government.
Could the Minister confirm that she's already said in previous answers that HR support was offered by her department, yet her answer today seems contrary to that? So was it a mistake to actually have offered HR support from her department in the first place? Another mistake?
Honourable members seem to not understand the process around local authority boards and pool boards. Yes, my department stated to the pool board on the 10th of January when we met with them that if they reached out to us, we would consider establishing whether OHR support would be available to them. However, this time it's a centralised service and it wasn't available to the Southern Pool Board on this occasion, and that is not the responsibility of my department, unfortunately.
Would the Minister agree that maybe it's her as Minister that doesn't understand the process, because you can't offer something that you can't then deliver on?
We were offering help and support to the Southern Pool Board. We'd previously offered it and it was successful, and we worked with the local authority and the school, well, the 3 local authorities that are part of the Southern Pool Board. On this occasion, it did not come forward. It did not come forward. Well, the 3 representatives on the Pool Board is the members I'm talking about, Honourable Member.
Update Brought to you by Simcox Advocates.
A former figure in the government's communications department said the Manx population may be uncertain about how the planned population increase to 100,000 will work. Journalist Alistair Ramsey said that a recent development has been the appointment of NEDs, non-executive directors.
The NEDs are to advise on governance, which is what the old-fashioned civil servants were there for. So it's a very radical approach, which I don't think we've seen the like of in modern times.
So effectively then we've had the revolution, and we should start seeing some quite radical change happening now.
It's probably too early to see what actually happens. I know the Chief Minister is very keen to point to the fruits of the economic strategy already, that there's an increase in working population, increase in government revenue on the back of that, and increased housing. How much of that might have happened anyway is a question. But
because you would expect after the constraint of COVID, the necessary constraint that we all had to deal with, that there would be a bounce in terms of economic output afterwards.
And that's one of the issues, I think, with this administration is the difficulty in getting to the detail, a bit more depth in terms of explaining what's happening, how it's going to work. With the population strategy, the increased population, the target for that in particular, I don't think the public are on board with that. I think they don't understand how that's supposed to work when you've got public services under a lot of strain already, that the cure is to produce a greater population. And if there is a rationale for that, I don't think it's cut through to the general public.
That's it for Update Tonight, compiled from the resources of Manx Radio's news department. Thanks to newsreader Siobhan Fletcher, producer Amy Griffiths. After the news at 6, Countryside with Kerry and Simon. Greater 6 with Chris Kindley at 6. The Folk Show with John Barker at 9. And I'm back tomorrow at 5:30 with another update.
WINT